What are the steps you have to take to become a freelancer? Coming up. Hello and welcome back to the Freelanceverse. Thanks for coming back to the channel. Thanks for the support on last week's first video of the year. It's doing very well and the response has been great. So keeping in line with this theme of a fresh start, of a fresh January, I have a new video for you guys. This one focuses on starting out. So it should be a step-by-step guide of what you have to do when you want to become a freelancer. Now, of course, since this comes from my experience, it's mostly Europe related. And I hope if you're watching outside of Europe that you can still find this interesting and maybe take something away from it. So the first thing you want to do when you want to become a freelancer is defining your scope. What will you do, right? For me, I'm a trained translator. So for me, it was obvious that I want to do something in the language industry, in the language services. I always advise freelancers not to go too deep when they define their first scope. Afterwards, you can go very niche, but you don't need to define your scope too niche because then you are kind of stuck in a box, right? So for me, I defined my scope as language services, and within that, I do many different things. For you, if you are trained in something, if you're a trained designer, coder, freelancer, whatever, not a trained freelancer, but a trained specialist in something, then it's relatively easy to find your scope, right? If you're not trained in anything, it's a bit harder, but then you have to kind of think what skills you have, what can you monetize, what problem can you solve. You know, mostly for CEOs, the problems you solve is saving time, right? They don't have time for anything, so they look for freelancers to do very menial tasks sometimes, but also high-level tasks. And don't think too, in a box. Think outside the box. I recently just saw a colleague of mine writing on LinkedIn that something like, I never thought that people can work as a freelance account manager, and now I'm doing it. So, sometimes you don't really think of the actual job that you will have, but you can go on LinkedIn, look for job descriptions, look what people look for, what they don't have time for, and try to find a niche that suits your skills. Of course, once you found it, you need to learn a lot about it, become the expert in that field, and go all in. Next step, you want to define your ideal customer, right? And this you should do really diligently, this exercise, because this will come in very handy later on. Who do you want to work for? Is it entrepreneurs? Is it small companies? Is it startups, big companies? Probably you don't want to go just say something like, I want to work for a Fortune 500 company, right? Because that's too broad, first of all, and it's also way too big a scale that you can't really serve as a single freelancer, right? So really define who you want to address, who you want to target in your marketing efforts as well. This exercise should take you quite some time because you really want to nail down your perfect ideal customer that you could immediately start working on tomorrow if you had him or her or the company. So definitely do that diligently. After you have these two steps, if you have defined your scope and your ideal customers, it's time to think about the legal stuff, right? And by the way, I'm gonna go into all the legal things now that you should do step by step, but don't let that, hold you back from starting already. If I waited until all my legal things were in place, I would have lost a couple of months, right? Especially in Belgium, you have to wait a lot between things. Sometimes you go to one agency or one bank or one company and they say you need to talk to them first. These guys say you need to talk to them first and you go back and forth. So definitely what comes now you have to do if you want to take this seriously and establish yourself as a freelancer, but don't let it get in the way of starting already. You want to think about your status, your work status. Are you allowed to work in the country you're currently in? This is from the perspective of a foreigner, of course. I've lived now for 10 years in different countries, so this has always been on my mind. In Belgium, if you are within the EU or EFTA state, you can work without any problems as a freelancer. So that was no issue for me. If you come from outside of Europe or EFTA, you have to apply for a professional card, a work permit, and you have to pay something for it. And I think it takes quite some time, so keep that in mind. You want to think of a business name, a trading name that you register yourself under. Most solo entrepreneurs that I know just trade under their personal name. Me too. My company is just registered under my name, Adrian Probst. That's fine, You can also register a brand, but even if you register with your personal name, you can still build a brand like I do now, the Freelanceverse, right? That doesn't hold you back from it. It's just illegal. It's on your invoice, and that's it. What you want to do there is already think a bit about your website, about your email address, etc., because that should all be in line. So maybe if you already know your website, your email address, this can be your trading name as well. What you have to do in most countries, I assume here definitely you have to register at the Chamber of Commerce. Here this is called the Crossroads Bank for Enterprises. You have to register there. It's easiest to do it through an agency because they can help you with all the legal and tax stuff, etc. Before you do that, you definitely want to inform yourself or talk to a lawyer or an accountant about the different legal structures that exist in your country. Here, for example, you can register as a sole proprietorship or as a company. So if you do as a sole proprietorship, you're liable with your own money, of course, but you have much less restrictions. If you register as a company, the company is liable with the company's money and you pay yourself a salary, but you have much more restrictions and much more conditions to fulfill. You have to create a business bank account. That's not only useful to know what comes in and goes out in terms of businesses and expense and income, and you can also pay yourself a salary, but it's also mandatory here in Belgium. At least you have to separate your finances, so you have to have a business bank account and a personal one, and it's really handy because you can pay yourself out a salary, and you never have problems with the taxes because all that happens on your business bank account is tax related, of course. You have to have a health insurance provider, and you have to sign up to a social security company provider. You can choose them yourself. The social security doesn't really matter because the rates are fixed across all providers. For health insurance, you can definitely shop around and find the best cover for the best price that suits you. You have to pay social security as a freelancer, as an independent here in Belgium, and I think everywhere else as well. And it's be careful of that because it's quite high. Usually employed people have the company that pays half or even more than half for them social contributions. As a freelancer, you have to pay 100% your own, right? And here in Belgium, you're relatively quickly in the highest bracket possible, so it's a lot, but you charge your prices gross, so this should all be incorporated in there. Memory card was full, sorry about that. So yeah, for me, I have an automated system in my bank account that automatically deducts social security and tax payments and puts it on a separate account. So I know exactly that this money I don't touch, this is not mine. And with that, it's no problem. You want to either get an accountant or study the tax law of your country very thoroughly, right? You can go both of these ways, whatever is more lucrative or interesting for you. Like for me, I just hired an accountant as soon as I came to Belgium because I heard from many people that it's a super tough system and very complicated, and the accountant can save you more money than you pay him every year or her. So yeah, I have an accountant. I pay them, I don't know, 400 or 500 euros a year, and they do everything for me. The VAT you have to do quarterly here, and also the tax prepayments I have to do quarterly. So every quarter I send all my sales receipts, all my sales invoices, all my purchasing invoices, and all my receipts from daily activities that are work related to my accountants. They prepare it there and send it to the tax authorities. For me, that's really nice, but you can do it alone, of course. You just need to make sure to understand it. Once you have all that done, all that into place, that's going to take you quite some weeks or months. You can go to the Commune and register as an independent, it's called here, as a freelancer, basically working for your own. And that then automatically triggers a few things. You go into a register, you meet other people online. There are events for freelancers. So it's a cool community that at the moment I don't use it that much, but in the beginning I definitely did. So now that you have all set up, of course, it's time to find clients, right? You start by building an online presence. So you make a website, you make an email address, you create all the profiles that on all the freelance websites that you can find. I made 2 comprehensive videos on how to find translation jobs. So if you are in this area of a freelancer, you can click here if you're interested in that video. I made one in 21 and one last year in 24. They're both different relevant, but still both quite relevant. So I would definitely recommend to use LinkedIn to connect, to network as part of your online presence, right? Maybe document everything you do. If you start a new business, document it on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, wherever, where people can find you and are interested that do the same thing. Find out all the hashtags in your industry, find out the big players, learn a lot about, who posts when and what, and how can you interact with them and learn from them. That's definitely a big part of marketing in the beginning, because no one knows you yet, right? You first need to create kind of a name for yourself, that you are the guy for this or the woman for that, Part of that is creating a portfolio, especially if you're working in a more creative field. You definitely want to create a typical portfolio as we know it. If you work in design, you want the design portfolio, but even for language services, you can create, even if you don't have experience at all with anything freelance related or in your field, you can already create a portfolio by doing voluntary work, by doing just work on your own, right? Building a portfolio does not need to be paid work, right? I made also now a long time ago a video on this, how to create a portfolio without any experience. You can click here if you're interested. It's called Permission Paradox, and it's still very relevant for many people. I often refer them to this video because you don't need to have paid work to create a portfolio or to have experience, right? You can create experience out of thin air by yourself. You just need to be creative, proactive, and that's definitely a very big step in becoming a freelancer. What you want to do next before you start working is defining your rates, because you don't want to be in a negotiation suddenly, because sometimes it just happens quickly, right? For me, it just randomly happened that I got my first client and I didn't really know how much I would charge. I had no idea, right? So define your rates early on. Also, I made a big video about that. You can click here if you're interested. That's a really long breakdown, but just in short, first of all, don't look at like average salary in Belgium or your country of residence, because you are not location dependent mostly as a freelancer, right? Depends on your services, but mostly you are not. So you don't want to look at the average salary where you live. You want to actually earn what you want to earn, right? Very shortly broken down, define the amount that you want to earn per month, net actually have, right? Define the hours that you want to work per month, and by that I mean on client projects, on actually chargeable projects, not just sitting around doing marketing, doing networking, because that's not paid as a freelancer. Then divide the net amount by the net hours, multiply this amount by 2 to account for taxes and social security, and you have your hourly rate. Do not undersell yourself at any point, even if you're early on in your career, right? If you are able to solve someone's problem, they are usually willing to pay for it, right? And if you just start, I know that people start as freelance translators and they look at the average per word rate and stuff, and that's not really a good start in my opinion, right? Because you're already in the rat race then. You're already working for 2-3 cents a word. I know you would say then, oh, agencies only pay that. I know, but then there are other ways to get into the industry, other ways to find clients, right? I can't tell you which it is. You have to be very creative to find it. Maybe you have to pick up the phone. Maybe you have to go to industry events. Maybe reach out. My last point will be marketing, inbound or outbound marketing, right? Depending on the client finding you or you finding the client. So there is always a way. It's not easy, it's going to be very hard, but it's definitely possible. As I said, you're ready, all is set up, your online presence is there, your rates are set, now it's time for marketing. You need to tell people that who you are, what you do, why they should hire you. Be upfront, be human, be show emotions, don't be like a robot. That there are enough online of that. So you can definitely sell with your human side. You can do inbound marketing, trying to make people interested in you by doing videos, by going to events, by speaking, by posting a lot online, by creating communities, or you can do outbound marketing, which you reach out to the client. It's mostly cold emailing, which can be a bit tough. I mean, it's just much more effort for lesser reward, but it can still work, and you can be more anonymous. You don't have to put yourself out there that much. So whatever works for you, maybe do a combination of both. That's probably the best approach. And then you're all set to go. I mean, after that, it's not about setting up anymore. After that, you are a freelancer, and you can live your dream, hopefully. So all the best with that. Let me know if you want more clarification on one of the points. I can make separate in-depth videos. Of course, this was a very quick overall step-by-step guide. but every point that I made could, deserves its own video. So let me know if that's interests you. Otherwise, looking forward to seeing you next Monday for the next video. Take care. Bye bye.